Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm sharing a project that features spotlight ink blending with a stencil, or you could think of it as masked ink blending, and I'll be featuring some brand new products that have just released from Pinkfresh Studio. I've kind of pulled out some of the products that I think I might use. Now, I didn't end up using all of these, but I wanted to show them to you. And this by no means is the complete release, but I wanted to show you what I pulled out to use. And it starts with the Poppy Mix Cling Background Stamp and Coordinating Stencil Set. I've also pulled out the Thank You Hot Foil Sentiment and Coordinating Die. I love that these come in a set together. And then we have some new essentials from Pinkfresh Studio. And these are the nested rectangle hot foil plates. And there is a coordinating nested rectangle die set that will cut both the inside and the outside of each of these hot foil rectangles. And we're going to be using that today. Now to start out, I'm going to mount my Poppy Mix stamp in my Misty Stamping tool. And in order to do that, I need to remove the foam pad from my Misty Stamping tool. And that's because these cling mount rubber stamps already have a layer of foam on them, so they're a little thicker than a clear photopolymer stamp. So I have my stamp mounted in the Misty, and I'm adding some Hammermill white cardstock into the Misty Stamping tool. I've inked up the Poppy Mix stamp with the Rocky Slope ink from Pinkfresh Studio, and I'm stamping that onto my cardstock. Then I'm going to take one of the nested rectangle dies. These are brand new from Pinkfresh Studio, and I'm going to die cut this background. Now today I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cut machine. This is a crank or a manual die cut machine instead of an electric die cut machine. And I am going to be hot foiling with the Spellbinders Glimmer system. I know I show the Gemini foil press on here a lot, but I thought I would switch it up today and use the Glimmer instead because I do have both of them in my stash. Now I am taking this small rectangle hot foil plate and I'm going to place it on an angle on this background that I've created, and I'm going to tape it in place using some Spellbinders tape here. This is a removable tape, and that's going to create a hinge. That allows me to keep the hot foil plate positioned where I want it, but then hinge it back to slide in the hot foil. And today I'm using this satin metallic hot foil from Spellbinders. This foils so beautifully, and I shared it in a project earlier this month where I did a Merry and Bright card, and the foiling was just so gorgeous. I thought I have to do this foil again. So you can see I've pulled back my hot foil plate and I'm sliding in the hot foil. Now, when I position this, I'm going to make sure that the pretty part of the foil is facing toward the pattern or the design of my hot foil plate. And the back side of the foil, or the dull or not shiny side, is facing towards my cardstock. Now my Glimmer platform is already preheated. You can see that by that green light below the red light. And now I'm going to position this with the hot foil plate touching the platform of my Glimmer. And I hit my timer button and added my spacer pad and my shim. And once that timer's done, that bottom green light will turn solid green. It was blinking when the timer was counting down. And then I can remove that platform from the base, run it through my Platinum 6, and I have this beautiful foil design. Now this is really hot, so don't burn yourself like I did. But you can see I'm removing the hot foil plate, and then I'm removing the foil sheet that's left over, and I have this gorgeous foiled frame on my background. And I'm going to use that frame as my guide for my spotlight hot foiling. Now I'm going to hot foil a second one of these frames onto some Hammermill cardstock. You could also use the Concord and Ninth white cardstock. That is a great cardstock for foiling. So I've just repeated the process once again by hitting that timer button, making sure my foil was in there, running it through my Platinum 6, and then I'm going to have a second hot foil frame. Now I went ahead and hot foiled the Thank You as well. As I mentioned, I didn't end up using it, but it's a beautiful piece. You can see my second frame there. And I'm going to use the coordinating nested rectangles to die cut both the outside and the inside of this frame that I created on a second piece of cardstock. Now, I wasn't for sure at this point if I was going to actually use this frame, but I ended up using it because I got my masking off a little bit. So this kind of saved the day, but this kind of demonstrates how you can use these nested rectangle hot foil plates with the coordinating dies to either foil it directly on your project or to die cut a frame. These would also be great to create a shaker window, so you could foil on the acetate itself, or you could foil on the card base and then cut out the center of the window. So many options when you're using foil plates like this that have the coordinating dies that cut both the outside and the inside edge. Now here's a look at that thank you that I hot foiled. It also has the coordinating die, so I'm lining up that die and I'm gonna run it through my Platinum 6 also to die cut this, just to show it to you. Now I wanted to use this over that window that I'm creating, but really it was a little large for the frame that I chose for this card project. So now I just have a hot foiled sentiment that I can use on another card project. So now that I have my hot foiling completed, I'm going to take this wide mint tape from scrapbook.com and I'm placing it on the outside edge of this foiled frame. Now I didn't want to put the masking paper over the frame itself because I didn't want to get anything sticky or mess up my foil in any way. Now the foil's pretty durable, but I'm just usually pretty careful with it. And once I have that outside area masked off, I'm going to bring in the layering stencils and I'm going to use several colors of ink to color this poppy mix image. And I think it's so beautiful. So everything that is exposed inside of the frame will be colored, but everything outside of the frame is going to remain that gray and white. Now, when I remove my stencils, I'm going to just wipe gently the excess ink that is sitting on top of the foil. And you can see I'm not smearing it into my design, but I'm being very careful to wipe along that edge just one time and not back and forth so I don't get any of the ink that's sitting on the foil into my design. Now I did take a Copic marker and fill in the background, all of the areas that were not colored on this image. And then I took another Copic marker, this is a W7, and I colored in the center of the flowers black. That's because I think poppies tend to have a dark center. They are the state flower of California, and I do live in California, so I've seen them a time or two. And you can see when I remove all of that masking paper, I have this gorgeous spotlight ink stenciling or ink blending over a stencil. Now I'm using the detailed leaf stamp set. This is brand new from Pinkfresh Studio for my sentiment. And I have prepped the surface of my vellum with a powder tool. And I stamped the Life is Beautiful sentiment using Versamark ink onto the vellum. And then I used Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder over that. And I heat set it. And now I'm using the coordinating die to die cut this sentiment. I love that Pinkfresh Studio is now including coordinating dies with sentiments where they can, because I think it makes them so much more versatile. Now I decided I wanted to cut down that background a little bit more, so I went ahead and used one of the nested rectangles to do that. And now I am using that standalone die cut and foiled frame. I'm adding some foam adhesive onto the back, and I'm going to place that over the frame that I foiled onto my card base. Now, the reason that I decided to use the frame was because my ink blending crept over the edge of my foiled edge on the card base itself. And that's because I didn't do a good job of masking it. So this was my way of kind of hiding that little mistake. I've added that sentiment over the popped up frame, and now I'm adding some champagne glitter drops. And when I went to add this onto my card base, I thought, you know what would be really fun is to add a second foiled frame around this die cut piece. So I am taking a piece of cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5 inches, and I'm lining up the edge of this hot foil plate with the edge of my cardstock. And once again, I'm creating a hinge with some low tack tape so that I can fold that hot foil plate back. I'm going to use this same satin foil that I used on the card front, and I'm just going to place that with the pretty side facing the design of my hot foil plate and the dull, not pretty side facing my cardstock. Then I'm going to take this over and place it onto my glimmer platform. And I'm going to add my spacer shim and my plate there, set the timer, and once this timer is done, I'm going to remove the platform from the base and run that through my Platinum 6 to apply the pressure that will press the foil onto my cardstock. Now this worked out perfectly. I wasn't sure how it would work, but I thought there's no harm in trying. So once I have that foiled, I took it over to my scoreboard and I scored this card base at 4¼ inches. And that created a side folding A2 size card base that I could then nestle this die cut and ink blended piece that I created earlier into that foiled frame. Now I did die cut 2 more plain white rectangles to place behind the card front that I created earlier, just to give this a little bit of loft. And that completes my card project today, featuring some brand new products from Pinkfresh Studio, as well as a spotlight ink blending technique. I think this card is so much fun and it's easily replicatable over and over again. And I think the florals are perfect for almost any occasion. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, a complete list of supplies, as well as some information on a blog hop that's happening right now to celebrate this brand new release from Pinkfresh Studio. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad you stopped by and hung out with me today. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.